It was supposed to be a simple morning, just coffee with my buddy Nate. Not that Nate, a different Nate. But I had forgotten my laptop charger, and I couldn't exactly spend 2 hours at a cafe with a dead battery. So I turned around and drove back home, figuring I'd be in and out in less than 5 minutes. The house was quiet when I stepped inside. Sarah's car was still in the driveway, so I figured she was upstairs. Maybe working from home, maybe scrolling through TikTok like she always did when she thought I wasn't paying attention. I walked into the bedroom and froze. My laptop was open on the bed. That didn't make sense. I always closed it when I was done. Plugged in, lid down. That was my thing. Like a ritual, but there it was, screen glowing like a guilty conscience. I stepped closer and saw the message. Just one line, sitting there like it had been waiting for me. Miss you already the second you left. No name. No context. Just those 8 words and a timestamp from 20 minutes ago. My stomach dropped. I stared at it for what felt like a full minute, the words burning into my brain. Miss you already? It was the kind of thing you text someone you're sleeping with, or someone you wish you were, not something you post in a work chat, not something Sarah would ever say, or have said to her. If everything was as normal as I had assumed it was, I didn't even hear her come in. Hey, she said casually, walking through the bedroom door like everything was fine. She noticed me standing by the bed, eyes still glued to the screen. Her smile tightened. What's up? I stepped back. Why is my laptop open? She looked at it, just for a second, then shut the lid in one quick motion. Oh, I was looking for the charger, she said. You left it in the closet, so I thought I'd grab it for you. Figured I'd check email while I was there. That smile. Too smooth, like someone who had practiced it in the mirror. I hesitated. Who sent that message? She blinked. What message? The one that said, miss you already? Her expression didn't change, not even a flicker. Oh, she said, almost too lightly. That's just from a work group chat. We were joking around after a Zoom call. You know how it is, people being cheesy. She was already walking to the hallway before I could respond. I stood there for a long time, the silence louder than anything she had said. Maybe she was telling the truth. Maybe it really was nothing. But it didn't feel like nothing. It felt like a door had cracked open, just enough for the cold air to come in. And no matter how much I wanted to ignore it, I couldn't unsee those 8 words. Miss you already the second you left. And I couldn't unhear the way her voice stayed too calm, too fast. Like she had rehearsed it. Like she already knew I would ask. For the next couple days, I tried to pretend it hadn't happened. I kept replaying the moment over and over. The open laptop, that message, the way Sarah shut the lid like it had bitten her. But every time I brought it up in my head, I told myself the same thing. It's nothing. Don't go crazy over one text. Still, it stayed with me. Like a splinter I couldn't dig out. That Friday night, we had dinner at home, just the 2 of us. I made pasta, poured a glass of wine, and tried to act normal. Sarah was on her phone most of the time, tapping away, screen always face down when she set it on the table. I noticed that more now. It wasn't just the phone. It was the way she talked or didn't. The pauses were longer. The little laughs were forced. She used to tell me about her coworkers. Funny stories, gossip, the kind of things you say when you feel close to someone. But now, nothing. Halfway through dinner, I cleared my throat. So, that message on my laptop, I said, trying to keep my tone light. You sure that was just a coworker thing? She didn't look up. Yeah, totally. We have this guy on the team, Brian. Always says stuff like that after meetings. It's kind of a joke. Brian? I repeated. She nodded. He's always like, miss you already, see you in 5 seconds, that kind of thing. She still wasn't looking at me. I stared at the side of her face, waiting for her to blink or stumble or crack, but she didn't. She just picked up her wine and took a sip like nothing was weird. I forced a smile. Okay. Just wanted to check. Inside, my gut twisted. Later that night, while she showered, I peeked at her phone. It was locked now. New passcode. She used to leave it open all the time, face up on the nightstand. We used to send each other memes while lying next to each other. Now, I didn't even know the 4 digits that unlocked it. I tried not to jump to conclusions. Everyone deserves privacy, right? Just because she changed her code didn't mean she was hiding something, but the part of me that had ignored small signs for too long. That part was wide awake now. After she went to bed, I sat on the couch in the dark. staring at the TV without watching it. I kept thinking about the way she had smiled at dinner, like she was wearing someone else's face. There was a time when I knew every expression she made, every shift in her voice. But lately, it felt like I was sharing a house with a stranger who wore her skin. I didn't confront her. I didn't demand answers. Instead, I told myself what I thought I needed to hear. She's tired. Work's been stressful. Maybe I'm overthinking it, but I knew better. Because once you've seen the crack in something, you can't stop noticing how fast it's spreading. Saturday morning, Sarah left early for a team-building hike with a few coworkers from the office. She mentioned it offhand while brushing her teeth, like it was just another thing on her calendar. I nodded like it didn't matter, but as soon as she walked out the door, I grabbed my coffee and went straight for the laptop. It was gone from the bedroom. I found it downstairs on the dining table, closed, just like I always left it. The charger was still plugged in. I sat down, opened the lid, and waited. The screen lit up. Nothing, no tabs open, no chats, no browser history that looked out of place. I clicked through everything, work emails, her calendar, even her recent downloads. Nothing stood out. I opened her messages. Gone. Whatever had been there, the one that said, "Miss you already the second you left," was wiped clean. I even checked the trash folder. Empty. I sat back, fingers hovering over the keys. If it really was from Brian, like she said, wouldn't the chat still exist? Wouldn't there be some trace of a thread, a work exchange, anything? I searched Brian. 0 results. Then I tried her LinkedIn. I figured maybe he'd be there, listed as a connection. I scrolled through her contacts. Nothing, no Brian, no Nate either. The name she had mentioned offhand when I asked a second time the night before, casually blaming the message on a sad goodbye from Nate on his last day. That had changed, apparently. No Brian, no Nate. Nothing that lined up with any of her explanations. I didn't know what I was looking for exactly. Some smoking gun, some open tab with hearts and winks. But what I found was worse. Total silence. Cleaned up tabs, scrubbed chats. Like she had taken a vacuum to the whole thing. She knew I would check. And that told me more than any message ever could. I closed the laptop and leaned back in the chair. For a minute, I just stared at the wall across the room, feeling something I didn't know how to name. It wasn't rage. It wasn't even heartbreak. It was doubt. Not the loud kind that screams in your chest, the quiet kind, the one that hums beneath everything, coloring even the most innocent moments. She came home later that day, all smiles and sunburned cheeks, holding a smoothie, and chattering about the trail and the view, and how good it felt to disconnect. I nodded, smiled back, acted normal. Because what else was I supposed to do? I couldn't confront her, not without evidence. And the evidence was gone, deleted like it never happened. That night, we watched a movie together. She curled up next to me like she used to, even fell asleep halfway through. I stared at the TV, wondering how many things I had missed, how long it had been going on, if it even mattered whether it was physical or emotional, if betrayal always started in the same quiet way. By the time I went to bed, I knew one thing for sure. Whatever was happening, she was already ahead of me, and I was done pretending I didn't feel it. The days that followed felt like walking barefoot across broken glass. Nothing was outright wrong, but everything felt just a little off. Sarah was present, technically. She came home at the usual time, joined me for dinner, asked about my day. But it was all surface level, no weight to it, no real warmth. Her phone was always nearby, but always face down. She never used to care. She'd leave it on the coffee table, sometimes wouldn't even check it for hours. Now, it went everywhere with her. Bathroom, bedroom, even the 5-minute walk to the mailbox. And she had started locking it. I noticed the new passcode pattern one night when I reached to hand it to her while it buzzed. She snatched it faster than I could blink, laughing nervously. "It's just work stuff," she said. "You know how strict they've gotten with privacy." She never used to laugh like that, high and tight, like her throat was squeezing the sound out. One night, we went out for dinner, just to change the routine, she said. The place was nice, cozy Italian spot downtown, candlelight flickering between us. But halfway through the meal, I noticed her shift in her seat when her phone lit up. She didn't check it, she just tapped the screen, turned it over, and placed it in her purse without a word. I let it slide. But later, as we were walking to the car, I asked, "Everything okay with work?" She blinked. "What?" "Your phone. You looked a little tense." "Oh," she said quickly, brushing her hair behind her ear. "It was nothing, just our group chat being dramatic again. You know how they are." Except I didn't know, because she never talked about work anymore. As we drove home, I caught a whiff of something sharp, not her usual perfume, something muskier. I almost didn't say anything, but curiosity won out. "New perfume?" She paused for half a second. "Oh, yeah, a sample I got in the mail. Didn't want it to go to waste." I nodded and said nothing, but I remembered something from 2 weeks ago. A late night when she came home, after drinks with coworkers, and gave me a quick hug before heading to the shower. She'd smelled like that same cologne then. Not perfume, cologne. I didn't know what was worse, the lies or how subtle they were. The cracks were there, showing themselves in all the smallest places. I noticed she barely touched me anymore. No hand on my back when we passed each other in the kitchen. No sleepy head on my shoulder when we watched TV. One night, as we lay in bed, I turned toward her and asked quietly, "Are you happy?" She was silent for a beat too long. Then, "Of course I am." "Why would you ask that?" I shrugged, keeping my voice steady. "Just feels like you've been somewhere else lately." She turned her head, eyes unreadable in the dark. "You're overthinking again? You always do that." That stung more than I expected. I rolled onto my back and stared at the ceiling, too tired to argue. Maybe I was overthinking. Maybe I was becoming the guy who read too much into everything. But I couldn't shake the feeling, the gnawing weight in my chest. Because even if I was wrong, one thing was clear. Whatever we had before, the easy laughter, the little touches, the comfort, it was slipping away. And the silence between us was starting to say more than either of us would admit. It started with laundry. I was tossing clothes from the hamper into the wash when I saw something that didn't belong. 2 men's dress shirts I didn't recognize. One was a crisp white French cuff shirt, the kind with those tiny buttonholes for cufflinks. The other had a team logo embroidered on the chest, a sports team I'd never seen Sarah wear, follow, or mention. At first, I thought maybe they were mine, tucked away from years ago. But they weren't. Wrong size, wrong brand, not mine. I held one up, trying to make sense of it. Sarah walked into the room at that exact moment. "Hey," she said casually, reaching past me for a bottle of fabric softener. "What's up?" I raised the shirt slightly. "Whose is this?" She glanced at it, just a flash of recognition in her eyes before her expression smoothed. "Oh, those? From the charity event last weekend. We had a clothing drive, remember? People left extra stuff for donations. Why are they in our laundry?" She smiled too quickly. "They were in one of the bags I brought home to sort. Must have gotten mixed in." I didn't say anything, just nodded and folded the shirt, setting it aside. But something about it didn't sit right. The shirt was too clean. It smelled like detergent and cologne, freshly worn, not sitting in a donation bag for days. Later that night, she packed for a 2-day work trip. She moved through the bedroom with that same polished efficiency I'd gotten used to lately. Everything about her felt too composed. Every word felt like it had been practiced before she said it. Before she left in the morning, she kissed my cheek and smiled. "Be good while I'm gone." I watched her back as she walked out the door. And then I sat in the kitchen, alone, staring at my coffee like it might offer an answer. I thought about the shirts, the perfume that wasn't hers, the messages I never got to read, the phone always face down, always locked. She was slipping away, and I was standing still. That night, the house felt different, quieter, emptier. Not just because she was gone, but because I knew, finally, deep down, that something was happening, and I couldn't deny it anymore. I opened her laptop again, still clean, too clean. Then I tried her tablet, also wiped. I searched through her side of the closet, the bathroom drawers, the places she once left messy and open. Now everything was neat, controlled, shut tight. Except for the doubt. That was spreading, fast and wide, like a leak in the walls. I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, feeling like the walls were closing in. Every moment of affection we'd had, every kiss, every shared inside joke, now felt like it came with an asterisk. Was it real? Or just habit? And when I finally did fall asleep, I dreamed of opening the door and finding her on the other side, smiling like a stranger, holding someone else's hand. I woke up in a cold sweat, more sure than ever. Whatever Sarah was hiding, I was done waiting for it to reveal itself. I was going to find it, Sarah wasn't supposed to be home that afternoon. Her trip was meant to last 2 full days, but the office calendar still showed her in meetings for another 6 hours. I had left work early on impulse, feeling restless and edgy all morning. I didn't even tell anyone, just grabbed my keys and drove. The house was quiet when I pulled into the driveway. No car, no movement in the windows. Still, something felt wrong. I walked up the steps, slid the key into the lock, and stepped inside. That's when I saw them. 2 half-empty wine glasses sitting on the coffee table in the living room. One had lipstick on the rim. The couch pillows were rearranged, one tossed onto the floor. A blanket, usually folded over the armrest, was balled up in the corner, like someone had sat on it, or under it. My heart kicked. I moved slowly, almost afraid to make noise, even though the house felt empty. A quiet song played from the Bluetooth speaker. Not anything I recognized, something acoustic and slow. A love song, or close enough to one. I walked toward the kitchen and saw a bottle of wine, uncorked, sitting on the counter. The same one Sarah and I had been saving for our anniversary next month. I didn't need any more signs, but they kept coming. Upstairs, our bedroom was perfectly made, too perfectly. But the bathroom light was still on. I stepped inside, and immediately the smell hit me. Cologne. Heavy, sharp, masculine. Not mine. I hadn't worn cologne in months. Steam clung to the mirror. Someone had just showered. The towels were damp, one still draped across the edge of the tub. But Sarah was gone. Again. I turned and went back downstairs, the tension rising in my chest until I thought it might choke me. I opened the hallway closet and grabbed the small lockbox we used for security camera backups. I hadn't checked it in months. I plugged it into my laptop and started scrolling through footage. The timestamps lined up, sometime around noon that day, and then I saw him. A man, mid-30s, maybe 40s, dark coat, sunglasses, confident walk. He stepped out the front door like he belonged there, tossed a bouquet of flowers into our trash bin without a second thought. My hands clenched the sides of the laptop. He didn't look back, just strolled down the sidewalk, phone in hand, whistling like a man who had nothing to hide. I fast-forwarded, rewound, watched the clip again. It was all there, the proof I hadn't wanted but needed. The evidence that made everything else fall into place. Sarah's message, the missing shirts, the strange perfume, the sudden secrecy, the lie about the work trip, all of it. She had brought someone else into our home, into our life, into the space we built together. And somehow, I wasn't even surprised, just hollow. I didn't call her, didn't yell, didn't even cry. I just stood there, staring at the frozen image of the man walking away from my front door. Then I packed. Quietly, deliberately. Like someone closing a book they'd read too many times. 2 bags, clothes, documents, charger, keys, no note, no message, no goodbye. Just silence. I walked out without looking back. Whatever life Sarah was building behind my back, she could keep it, but I wasn't going to be a part of it anymore. I didn't go to a hotel. That would have been too easy, too exposed. Instead, I found a motel on the edge of town. One of those old roadside places with buzzing neon signs and thin walls that smelled like cigarettes, no matter how many times they'd painted over them. It was the kind of place people went to disappear for a night. I figured I might need a little longer. I paid in cash. The room was basic. A creaky bed, a scarred wooden desk, and a window unit that rattled like it was trying to leave the wall. But for the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe. Nobody was lying to me in here. Nobody was smiling with a secret behind their eyes. Just me, the hum of traffic in the distance, and a silence that didn't feel quite so heavy anymore. I didn't sleep much that first night. My mind spun in loops, playing the footage over and over again. Him tossing the flowers like a man discarding evidence, the wine glasses, the steam in the bathroom. The look on Sarah's face when she brushed past me days earlier with that smooth smile. I'd been so stupid, so quiet, so trusting, and now I was wide awake. By morning, I knew what I had to do. Not just leave, vanish. No grand confrontation, no shouting match. I didn't want closure, I wanted distance. I started moving fast. First, the finances. I logged into our bank account from the motel Wi-Fi and transferred my half, the money I had earned, saved, managed, into a new account under my name only, Then I closed the joint credit cards, canceled the utilities that were in my name, and locked down every subscription or bill I'd ever been stuck paying for us. Then the documents. I updated my mailing address to a UPS store across town, set up paperless billing on everything, and ordered a new phone plan. I filed a change of address form with the post office, temporary just in case. I wanted a clean break, but I didn't want to disappear into total chaos. Not yet. Finally, I rented a cabin, 2 hours north, tucked in the trees near a lake, with no neighbors in sight and no cell service unless you climbed a hill and begged the sky for a single bar. The listing said rustic, which usually meant cold floors and spider webs, but it also said quiet. That's all I needed. I left the motel on a Tuesday morning long before Sarah would expect me home. On the way out of town, I turned off my phone and tossed it in the glove compartment. I didn't want to see her name light up the screen. Didn't want to read her texts, her excuses, her pleas, if they even came. For all I knew, she had already moved on. Maybe that guy was still in the house. Maybe he'd replaced my toothbrush with his. I didn't care. Not anymore. As the highway stretched in front of me, the city faded behind me like a shadow I'd finally outrun. I kept one hand on the wheel, the other resting on the gear shift, like it used to when we'd take weekend drives together. Funny how habits stick even when the person doesn't. 3 hours later, I pulled up to the cabin. It was small, gray, tucked between tall pines. The air smelled like pine needles and damp earth. No wine glasses, no half-truths, no perfume that didn't belong. I got out of the car and stood there a minute, breathing in the stillness. And for the first time since I saw that message on the laptop, I felt something new. Not anger, not sadness, not betrayal, freedom. The cabin was old but solid. Wooden floors that creaked, windows that stuck halfway when you opened them, and a fireplace with ash from someone else's winter still sitting in the grate. I didn't mind. If anything, I liked it that way. It wasn't polished or pretending to be perfect. It just was. The first few days, I barely spoke a word. I unpacked my bags, stocked the fridge with basic groceries from the nearest gas station, and built a fire every night, even if I didn't need the heat. There was something comforting about the crackle, the way the flames moved without apology. I cooked simple meals, eggs and toast in the morning, soup from a can at night. I ate slowly, letting the silence keep me company. There was no need to rush, no one to ask where I was going or why I looked tired. I didn't have to smile if I didn't feel like it. By day 4, I started writing in a journal I picked up at a roadside shop. Nothing fancy, just a spiral notebook with a faded cover. I didn't know what I was trying to say at first, just short entries, lists, memories, questions. How long was she lying to me? Did she ever plan to tell me? Was I ever enough? Eventually, the writing flowed easier, not to figure things out, just to get them out of me, like draining a wound. In the afternoons, I took long walks. There were trails behind the cabin that cut through the trees, some leading to a small lake with a rotting dock and birds that scattered when I got too close. I brought my phone a couple times, hoping for a signal, but deep down, I didn't want one. If Sarah had written, if she'd sent some carefully worded apology, I didn't want to read it. Not yet. One morning, I climbed the hill behind the cabin, just to see how far I could see. The sky opened up wide above the treetops. No buildings, no people, just clouds and open air. And I realized I hadn't thought about her that morning. Not until then. That night, I checked my old email out of curiosity. There they were. 3 messages from Sarah, all in the same tone. I'm sorry. I panicked. I didn't mean for it to go this far. No mention of the man, no explanation, just guilt thinly disguised as love. I didn't reply. I read each one slowly, then closed my laptop and pushed it away. I felt something shift in my chest. Not pain this time, just finality. The truth was, Sarah hadn't broken our relationship with that guy. She had broken it long before, piece by piece. The lies, the distance, the way she looked me in the eyes and told me nothing was wrong when everything was falling apart. The cabin gave me the space to see it for what it was. Not a single betrayal, but a slow erosion. And now, here in the quiet, I could finally stop blaming myself. I could finally begin again. Alone, and okay with that. It was a Tuesday morning when her last email came through. The subject line was simple. Please read this one. I nearly didn't open it. I was sitting on the porch with a mug of weak coffee, watching fog lift off the trees. The kind of morning where silence feels like a gift. I stared at the screen for a full minute before clicking. This time, it wasn't like the others. There was no guilt-laced begging, no defensive tone hiding behind phrases like, "We both made mistakes." It was quieter, sadder, more honest. She wrote about how she had let something slip and didn't know how to catch it before it crashed. She said she knew what she did had hurt me in a way she couldn't undo, that she had made excuses for months, even to herself, that the affair wasn't just about someone else. It was about her trying to be someone else, someone she couldn't even define. She ended it with a single line that sat heavy on the screen. "I missed the version of us before I broke it." I read it twice, then once more, and I felt nothing. Not hate, not sadness, just a slow, calm understanding that what we had, or what I thought we had already ended long before I walked out of that house. I closed the laptop without replying. Maybe a better man would have sent something back, a line of forgiveness, a final word. But I wasn't looking for closure anymore. I wasn't looking for anything. I spent the rest of the day chopping wood behind the cabin. The repetitive rhythm felt good, clean. Each swing of the axe helped clear space in my head. I didn't think about her. I didn't think about the guy from the video or the unanswered questions. I thought about what was next. Later that evening, I sat by the fire and watched the sky turn dark through the window. I pictured her reading back over her own words, waiting for a reply. Maybe checking her phone, maybe hoping for a sign that I still cared. But I didn't. Not because I had turned cold, but because I was finally warm again, in a way I hadn't been in a long time. I had nothing left to say. She'd written her goodbye, and I had already lived mine. I sipped my coffee, flipped open my journal, and wrote only one sentence. "There's peace in letting go of what never really held you." Then I closed the notebook, and that was the end of it. By the time fall rolled in, the cabin didn't feel temporary anymore. The mornings had grown colder. I started waking up earlier just to light the fireplace and wrap my hands around a hot mug before the sun broke through the trees. There was no alarm clock, no meetings, no waiting texts from Sarah, just the quiet rhythm of a life I'd started to build from scratch. Every day had its own pace now. I'd cook breakfast, go for a walk, journal. Sometimes I took photos on an old digital camera I found in a storage box. Snapshots of the woods, the lake, a squirrel with half a tail that kept showing up near the back porch. Other times I sat still for hours, just letting my thoughts come and go. There was no schedule, no pretending. The weight that used to live in my chest, the one I didn't even know I was carrying, was finally gone. I hadn't spoken to Sarah in over a month. After her last email, she stopped trying. Or maybe she finally understood. Either way, the silence that followed wasn't heavy like it used to be. It was clean, like freshly washed sheets, like the breath you take when the air outside smells like rain. I started sleeping better, eating better. I read books I had forgotten I owned, started learning how to cook with ingredients I couldn't pronounce, and even fixed the broken screen door on the back patio just because it felt good to fix something again. I wasn't healing for her. I was healing for me. That was the difference. Before, I think I kept waiting for something. Closure, clarity, even some dramatic moment that would make it all make sense. But none of that ever came. And eventually, I realized I didn't need it. She had made her choice, and I had finally made mine. No more checking for missed messages, no more wondering if she was sorry, no more dragging myself through old memories, hoping they meant more than they did. Now, when I thought about Sarah, it was like remembering a room I used to live in, one with peeling paint and a window that never opened all the way. It had its time, but I wouldn't go back even if I could. I didn't hate her, not anymore. I just didn't miss her either, and that in itself felt like a kind of victory. As I stood outside that evening watching the sun drop behind the ridge, I realized something. I didn't need to find a new version of myself. I had already become him, one quiet choice at a time.